हरिः कन्ना।
So far we have seen variables, data types, levels of measurements, and then we moved into population and sample. We understood the difference between the population and sample. But how do you make a sample? So that's what the next question. You got the population, but how do you make a sample? So for that, we have sampling techniques. So there are different sampling techniques. So sampling techniques are broadly classified into two types. One is probability sampling and second one is non-probability sampling. So probability sampling, so here the samples were chosen based on probability theory. So I hope you know some of the basics of probability. If you're not sure, just uh, go through my intuitive probability for you course. Okay, so the probability theory, so based on the probability theory, the sampling was done. Now, what all different methods that comes under the probability sampling? The first one is simple random sampling. So what does it mean? A simple random sampling. This is a basic sampling technique where every individual in the population has an equal chance of being selected for the sample. So note down that equal chance, so equal chance of being selected for the sample. So it involves selecting individuals at random without any restrictions or bias. So then after that we have a cluster sampling. A cluster sampling technique. In this technique, the population is divided into clusters such as geographical areas or neighborhoods, and a random sample of clusters is selected. So first you make them into clusters, and after making them into cluster, then you have to randomly select for the sample. Then you have to randomly sample a random sample of clusters is selected. You have to select those clusters randomly. So then all individuals within the selected clusters are included in the sample. So this is called a cluster sampling, because both the simple random sampling and cluster sampling both rely on randomness, randomly picking. So this is based on the uh, law of probabilities. So that's the reason these samplings are called probability sampling. So then we have the systematic sampling. So the third one is a systematic sampling, and after that the fourth one is a stratified random sampling. So in stratified random sampling, uh, this technique involves dividing the population into subgroups or strata based on a specific characteristics such as age, gender, income, or location. Then individuals are randomly selected from each subgroup in a proportion to their representation in the population. I'll repeat this. So first what will we do is we will make some subgroups from the population. We call them as a strata or stratum based on the specific character. So obviously the stratums should possess uh, they should possess the same characters, but they should be different, they should be heterogeneous from one another, if you see, but inside all should be homogeneous. So uh, that's the reason this population into subgroups or strata based on a specific characteristics such as age, gender, income, or location. Then individuals are randomly selected from each group in proportion to their representation in the population. So these are all the probability sampling. Then we have the non-probability sampling. In non-probability sampling is nothing but samples were chosen based on the researcher's subjective judgment. So there is a bias, always a bias in these sampling methods. So these are all comes under the researcher's subjective judgment, or we can call them as a non-probability sampling. So in non-probability sampling, the first one is convenience sampling. So this is a non-probability sampling technique where individuals who are easily accessible or available are selected for the sample. So this method is often used in situations when where time, cost, or resources are limited. Then judgmental or purposive sampling. So here in judgmental or purposive sampling, this is again a non-probability sampling technique where individuals are selected based on the researcher's judgment or specific criteria. So this method is often used in qualitative research where the focus is on understanding specific experiences or perspective. Then we have snowball sampling, and after snowball sampling, we have a quota sampling. So the quota sampling, this technique involves selecting individuals based on a specific characteristics in order to ensure that the sample reflects the characteristics of the population. So quotas are set for each characteristic such as age, gender, or income, and individuals are selected to meet those quotas. So there are other sampling techniques as well, and the choice of technique depends on the research question, the characteristics of the population, and the resources available. So it's important to choose a sampling technique that is appropriate for research design and that will yield a sample that is representative and unbiased.